It's the Arch Advocate podcast for Thursday, July 26th. People, you've got to have a sense of humor. Now, I've made this clear before. One thing I hate in this world is people telling me what I gotta do. Don't be telling me what I gotta do. I'll figure it out. Right? If I want your advice, I'll ask for it. That being said, you gotta keep a sense of humor about you, people. Laugh. Right? Your sense of humor. Listen, laughter. I believe the going theory is that laughter literally cures cancer. Right? That laughter, it's part of your immune system, literally part of your immune system. Therefore, it is very important. It is metaphysically important. And if you can't laugh, man, it's gonna screw with your judgment. I did like a whole show on this one time. Maybe not the whole show, but most of it. Right? Like people, I think people don't think about stuff like this. I just trip out on stuff like this. I'll nerd out on a single concept. It's like, well, like if you have the instinct to, keep away from bears and stuff, right? Well, that's a good instinct to have, right? If your ability, when your body tells you like, hey, it's time to eat, hey, it's time to drink water, hey, it's time to go to sleep. Like those are instincts, and if you don't obey them, you will die. So, are you going to say that like one instinct is superior or better or worse than the other? I don't think it works that way. I think they're all equally important, and when you don't have that mechanism to release stress, right? To think about things from a different vantage point, usually like if you're laughing at something that's real, like a real problem, it's because you've transcended it. You've gotten above it, and now you're looking down on it from just a completely different perspective and thinking, yeah, that's absurd. That's absurd why people do that. It's absurd why I do it. And then you can laugh at it, and then you get that dose of drugs that your body has, naturally built into it, and you laugh your balls off. And then you're better. You're better for having, gone through that whole experience, right? Like, look, one thing that concerns, and by the way, what I'm going to come all the way around, if somebody would please remind me, just kidding. I'm in the Macedonian Alps right now, and there's nobody around, and this is not a live tape, but tape shows you how old I am. But like, I'm going to try to remember to bring this train around to how. That young communist Cortez is all butthurt over that funny little video that people made about her, and leftist Sam chimed in on it, and it's like he didn't see the joke in it either. You know what I mean? Like, here's this video, this satire video that they made of her in an interview, and it was funny, and it was well done. But what's ironic, and this is, an actual case of irony, is that if you watch the actual interview, the original one that wasn't, messed with, like for me, that was even funnier. It was funny to watch her like talk nonsense and think like, wow, there's all these people that look to her like, oh, she's the future. It's like, dude, she's a moron. She's a moron, people. Like, she talks... and like just nonsense comes out. Like, it's like in the Palestine and the Iraq and such, in the U.S. Americans. She just sounds like a complete idiot. And it was funny, it was funny the first time. I remember watching that video going like, oh God, like this is who the Democrats are now. Like, this is their last hope. It's hilarious. Anyways, going back to like the importance of a sense of humor, because the point is, and this is the point that I made on the broadcast before, is that like one of the hallmark sort of identifiers of like hardcore leftists is that they don't have a sense of humor. They can't laugh at anything, and the things that they do find hilarious is disturbing. They think pedophile jokes are funny. They think making jokes about murdering people is funny. Right? Like in that new Chris Rock special, and I've always been a huge fan of Chris Rock. right? But if you watch that his latest special, like in the first few minutes, he makes this joke about like, oh, we need to see more white children being killed. And nobody laughed, but there was applause, and there was the sounds that come out of a crowd, but the sounds wasn't laughter. And it wasn't laughter because it wasn't funny. Or then you have Samantha Bee, who is unfunny. She's an unfunny lady. She gets on TV, and you can go back and you can watch the clip. Test me if I'm wrong. She calls Ivanka Trump a feckless cunt. And listen to the noise that happens right after that. It's not laughter. It's plenty of noise. It's woo and clapping and whatever. It's not laughter because it's not funny. But that's what these deranged like zombie leftists. That's to them that's humor, and it's like you're in a very dangerous place when you've lost your sense of humor, when you lose your ability to laugh, because now you can't transcend it. You can't get above it. You can't take another view of it and come to an objective view. Your views are completely subjective. And one of the important things, for example, you go back and you watch Richard Pryor stand up. Now, Richard Pryor's obviously he was a genius, but the thing about like old comedians is that their comedy, it doesn't hold up. You know what I mean? Like if you go back and listen to Lenny Bruce comedy, it's like it doesn't hold up because it was all very timely. It applied to those times, but I'm not saying it's not important. In fact, quite the opposite. It is very important. You go back and you listen to Lenny Bruce, you listen to Richard Pryor, and Richard Pryor was really the first black guy to hit the mainstream and make jokes about white people. And that was very important at the time because civil rights had just happened. You know what I mean? A whole bunch of people died. Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. Like the times were tense, to say the least. And so to have Richard Pryor come along and make jokes about white people, right, and make jokes about black people, it's like it allowed the crowd to exhale that breath of relief. Like, oh, okay, we can laugh about this now. It's okay. It's not too soon. There's obviously a famous, rich, professional guy up there on stage making jokes, so I guess now we can laugh about it. And that's the importance of having a sense of humor. It's healing. One of the things that I think about, and by the way, this isn't my own idea. Like I'm getting this from somebody else, but I don't remember who. But if Mel Brooks was right now writing movies, right? If Mel Brooks was right now a young man doing the work that he did originally, we would never hear of him because the left is so uptight about offending people. You go watch Mel Brooks movies, they're horribly offensive, but that's why they're so funny. You know what I mean? Here's this Jewish guy who's was related to people who were directly affected by the Holocaust, and he's making jokes about Nazis. You know what I mean? Like it was important work. It was important, and why? Because in the 70s when his work really started coming out, World War II was only 30 years old. Like the idea of fighting Germans was still a very real idea. Everybody that participated in the killing of the Nazis, they were all still alive. You know what I mean? And so here comes this Jewish guy. This silly little man, he comes along and he makes a bunch of jokes about Hitler. You need that. You need to be able to laugh about it. Why? Because it's horrible. It was a horrible thing. All of a sudden the Germans just went crazy and started killing everybody. Tried to stomp out the Jews, killed a total of 12 million people inside of concentration camps, 50 million people overall. Yeah, the world was stressed out. They needed something to laugh at. Here comes Mel Brooks. Little Jewish guy making Nazi jokes. And other racial jokes. Like you go watch Blazing Saddles in its original cut, like that. You could not get away with that today. And you say, oh, you can't say, up yours, nigger, on a movie these days. It's horribly offensive. You can't say that word. A white person can't say that word. It's like, yeah, you can. In fact, and unless we have like professional funny people doing it, we're not going to get over it. as a people. And that's, that's the real shame, is that you see these people and they have no sense of humor. And they all, and that's also coupled with a bizarre tribal mentality. It's like, oh no, we're the right people, we're the good people, and everybody who's not us is the bad people, right? So you've got a group of people who have no sense of humor. They don't have that stress release mechanism, who believe that they're the only right ones, right? That their ideology is the correct one, with no wiggle room for like, well, I mean, there's 7 billion people on the planet. Surely we're not the only right ones. You know what I mean? Surely our ideology can be successfully contested by somebody else, by a different ideology, right? These people have there's nothing outside of their echo chamber, right? You get these people talking about, they're talking about, America's bad because of slavery. America was built by slaves, right? Now we need reparations because, black people were enslaved. It's like, well, if you need reparations, shouldn't you, instead of asking the people who had nothing to do with it for money, shouldn't you be going to the people who actually received the money for the slaves? And they'll of course they'll get a blank look on their face. They won't have any idea what you're talking about. But the truth of the matter is this: there was not a single slave sold to the United States that was not sold to the United States or people in the United States by Muslims. That is a fact. And you can verify that if you would just read a damn history book, right? Now, I have Muslim friends, and I'm not talking about the fake ones, the fake white American Muslims, or the fake black American Muslims who, converted because they lived in a black neighborhood or they visited prison or whatever. Those are fake Muslims. The Muslim friends that I have, they're from Turkey, they're from Jordan, they're from Saudi Arabia, you know what I mean? I have a friend who's a Muslim guy, and he's like part of the royal family, right? Like those guys are my friends, and I love those guys. But the fact is that when you start looking away from history, it's like, well, then you're losing it. And you bring that up to these people, and they'll just be like, no. Or bring up the fact that, like, yes, America had slavery, and we also ended it, right? Great Britain started, and we finished it, but ultimately it was Western civilization that ended slavery in Western civilization. Here's some more bad news for you. There are more slaves in the earth right now than there ever has been in recorded history. And where is their righteous indignation for those people? Right? There's over 40 million slaves right now in the earth. And you can go to Libya and you can see them being sold at auction by Muslims. Where is your righteous indignation? Oh, well, but you know what I mean? You'll hear a bunch of excuses. It's like, dude, if you just stop making excuses, and if you just quit being so concerned with having everybody think that you're the right people, maybe we could get some things done. And maybe we could go and bring salvation to those 40 million people and save them and rescue them and get them out of that situation. But no, you're too busy trying to pull down, statues of President whoever, or not president, but, General Lee or whatever, or pissing and moaning about, the car from the Dukes of Hazzard, which was called the General Lee. It had a Confederate flag on it. Like, you're so busy being pissed off about nothing that you allow 40 million people to be slaves to this day, right? Your indignation is not helping anybody. I mean, righteous indignation can go a long way if it's applied to the right cause. But your indignation is like, it's echo chamber. It's completely devoid of any understanding of history or even what's going on in the present. You're in an echo chamber and you are humorless. You want to get over this, like we're gonna have to come together. You're gonna have to come and sit and talk with me. And if you don't have a sense of humor about things, if your whole agenda is just to try to convince me that you're right and I'm wrong, we are not going to have a fruitful conversation. You know what I mean? And it really does break my heart because I have friends on the left, like friends that I cherish their friendship. It really breaks my heart to see. It's like like we saw in that video, that was, that mock video of, Miss Cortez, who, by the way, she's doing all the heavy lifting. Every time she opens her mouth, it's like, wow, you're stupid. And what's worse is, you're probably going to become a congresswoman. Like, you're probably going to have enough votes. You know what I mean? Because people have gotten so insane that they would rather have a moron who speaks nonsense, right? Than somebody who, look, I'm not against speaking nonsense either. I'm certainly not a big fan of you doing it all the time like she does. But like, if you come out and you say something stupid, you need to have the ability to get up on a microphone and poke fun at yourself. Make jokes, right? Self-deprecating jokes, right? That's how you apologize. You make jokes, where you are the butt of the joke. But she doesn't do that. She comes out after that video where literally the original video was funnier than the funny video. You know what I mean? Have you seen that video? It's hilarious to watch her, as somebody who's going to be running for Congress on November 6th. She's up there trying to sound real smart about what goes on in Israel and the Gaza Strip and, the Palestinian people. She's up there trying to sound real smart, and the lady who's interviewing her goes, now, hold on a minute here. You use that word occupy, or occupation. Like, what do you mean by that? And she's like, I guess what I mean for me, you know what I mean? Like, she completely exposes herself, and then she has the balls to say, don't ask me. I'm not an expert on foreign, whatever. It's like, you're running for Congress, lady. That's precisely what we need you to be. You're going to be in a position where you can submit bills to be signed by the president. You're going to be in a position where you are able to submit ideas for new laws in this country, and you're going to go on a TV station, talk nonsense, and when you get called out on your nonsense, you're just going to admit, like, yeah, you know what, I don't really know about this, and then double down on that? That's not the way to do it. You have to have a sense of humor. That's the only way out of that situation, and now you've doubled down on an already shitty position, and everybody can see it. Because you're more concerned with how people see you and the image that you believe that needs to be in their head about you. When that's the wrong image for people to have. We need to know that you're human. You know what I mean? The reason we're in this situation all together now, right? It's because for all of these decades, right? And going back to before there was even television and before there was even radio, going all the way back, the fact is that we always believed that these politicians, they were noblemen. They were the, in the Hindu religion, it's like they are the Brahmin class. They're the best people, right? They're the smart people. They're the wise people. Somewhere deep down, we've always known, like, no, people are just people. You know what I mean? There's no occupation that you can have that by way of having that occupation you become a better person. That's not how that works, right? To the point to where we all got sick and tired of it, and we said, you know what? Just give me an outsider. Just give me anybody. Go get me that super brilliant brain surgeon. He wants to be president. Let's throw him in there. Oh, hey, look, also, the real estate mogul from New York City, who is a Democrat, a lifelong Democrat who gave money to Hillary Clinton. He's running as a Republican. Fine. Whatever. Just give me anybody who's not one of them. And what did the Democrats do in return? They doubled down on their already shitty position. They said, no, we're going to put the ultimate of establishment person up in the run. Hillary Clinton, who was, the wife of Bill Clinton, who was a two-term president, like the very essence of what the American people were finally saying, like, enough of that. We don't want any more of that. And then you Democrats will say, like, oh, but she won by 3 million votes. It's like, well, I don't know. Democrats are famous for having a lot of dead people arrive for voting day. So I don't know that you really want to make that argument, dear leftist. Because we can really, if you want, we can look into that. Was it really 3 million? Or was it 1 million? How many was it? But anyways, I digress. A sense of humor. Sense of humor is important, and you need to get one if you don't already have one. Hey, you guys might have heard in the news just yesterday, hours ago. So the White House bans one of the reporters from CNN to a particular White House event. So it was one person that they banned. They didn't ban CNN. All right, because this is going to get screwed up in the news, and I know for a fact that the Young Turks are going to come out and they're going to start screaming like, oh my God, it's the end of the First Amendment. Look, the president, because he's a tyrant and a Nazi who, funny, they'll never say socialist, right? That, Hitler was actually a socialist. But they're going to come out, and CNN is going to come out, and they're going to say, like, oh, he's trying to, take away the freedom of the press. No, that's not what happened. CNN did not get banned from this particular White House event. CNN's reporters, plural, did not get banned from this particular White House event. It was one person. Two officials reportedly told CNN White House reporter Caitlin Collins that she shouted and asked inappropriate questions earlier during President Trump's meeting with the European Union Commissioner Jean-Claude Juncker on Wednesday afternoon. So it's one person. And it's one person who, look, the fact is, there is some weird Trump derangement syndrome where decor is being completely tossed out the window. Etiquette and manners is being completely tossed out the window. You watch some of these White House, press secretary meetings when what's her name, Sarah Huckabee Sanders is up there talking, and there are some wildly inappropriate things going on. And it's disturbing because it's like, look, the White House is under no obligation to do that for you. You know what I mean? Those White House press conferences, the White House is under no legal obligation to have that at all. They can close those doors and completely get rid of the position of the White House press secretary as we know it, and just turn that position into a PR thing where it's like you're going to be told everything that we're going to tell you is just going to be scripted and approved and stamped before you ever get it. We don't need to meet with you one-on-one. Like the White House does not need to provide that. That is a nicety, and I'm glad. I would absolutely hate it if that got shut down. But the fact is, there's nothing having to do with the First Amendment, the freedom of press, or anything like that. There's nothing there, right? So this lady's shouting at the president of the United States. You may not like President Trump. Okay. A lot of people don't. By my estimation, it's almost exactly half of the United States doesn't like the president of the United States. Gotcha. I'm with you. I mean, I don't share that sentiment, but I hated the last one. I hated, you know what I mean? Like, whoever the president of the United States is, half of the country is going to hate whoever that person is. So the fact that you hate President Trump, gotcha. Right? I'm with you. But to lose your manners, right? To lose your shit on national television in front of everybody and be disrespectful, that's unprecedented. Unprecedented. So this lady gets thrown out. She says, no, you can't come to this whatever event this is that they're talking about. Now here's the problem. CNN could have obviously just said, okay, well, we're going to send somebody else. All right, problem solved. But the story doesn't end there. A whole bunch of Fox News people came out. And by the way, like, I watch Tucker Carlson, but I'm not a fan of Fox News, really at all. And not because of this, but just because of a lot of other things. So Fox News comes out, and they come out in support of, it says, Fox News announces support of CNN after White House bans reporter. Well, you know, the thing is that I don't understand why they would do, because they did. They came out and they're like, we stand firmly with CNN on this issue. Why? CNN wasn't banned. This lady was. A disrespectful lady who has no sense of etiquette. You know what I mean? You can't just you can't just go into somebody else's meeting and act a fool. That's how you get thrown out. Do you know that? You're not allowed to yell fire in a crowded building. You're not allowed to. Did you know that, like, if you go into your local church, you're not allowed to speak up there either? By law, it's against the law. Like, if you go into a church and you hear a bunch of nonsense coming across the pulpit, and I know because I've been faced with this dilemma many times, many times. Times when I was sitting there in the pews or whatever, and sitting there thinking like, wow, this person is talking complete horseshit in the name of my God. And I would want to stand up and, you know, pull my hair out. In fact, that's actually what happened, and start screaming at the top of my lungs. But I didn't do it, one, because I have manners, and two, because I know it's against the law. And you can't, you know, your freedom of the press does not extend to bad manners. Right? You're invited to a thing that does not need to happen. It's just like the White House Correspondents' Dinner. The White House is under no obligation to host that. It's a gift. Be respectful. And when you have that one lady from the Netflix thing up there, that, Miss, God bless abortions lady, and she's up there just making fat jokes and making jokes about the way people appear, like their face. It's like, come on, dude. You seriously hate America that much that you just want to also get rid of the manners and the sense of civility that goes along with our culture. You just want to throw all that out. Well, then you're going to get tossed. You're not going to be invited to other parties. And you know what? Screw Fox News for doing that. And screw you, Bret Baier. You know what I mean? You stand up. You tell the truth. CNN was not banned. That lady was, because she's an asshole. And that's what happens. I'm glad that happened. So screw that lady. I'm not a fan of CNN at all. And screw Bret Baier for standing up for CNN in this case. And everybody else that came along with it. Anyways, that's enough of that. In other news, here's something really funny. Again, you got to keep a sense of humor. So you got to look around and look at who's really in charge. You know what I mean? Like, there's hundreds and hundreds of Congress people, right? So again, the idea of noblemen and that sort of thing. Like, look at Maxine Waters. What's horrible is that there's people that absolutely love her, right? They live in her district, which is an absolute third world shithole. And they see that that she lives way outside of that district in a mansion, and they absolutely can't get enough of her. So she goes up on stage in the last few days in a church and said, oh, God told me to do this. This is one of the things that's funny. It's like, okay, so you leftists, you truly are the party of, there is no God, God is dead, we don't want anything religious around us. We don't want anything religious or anybody who is religious, influencing our policies, unless of course they're Muslim or whatever. So she gets up on a church stage and said, "Oh, God told me to do this." Oh yeah, which God? The Jesus one or the Muhammad one? Right? The Buddha one or the Krishna one? Which one? Right? Which God? Dear leftist, she was in a Christian church. That can't be a completely benign fact. You know what I mean? This lady's up there talking about like, oh God told me to do this. But that's, one of the things is like, again, when you don't have a sense of humor, you're not going to be able to laugh at the appropriate places and say, oh, that's nonsense. Like again, the lady from Miami who dresses like a rodeo clown. I keep going back to that because it's like, I just look at it, it's like, this is unbelievable, man. You're a congresswoman? Like, you literally have the power to, influence law in this country and regulations, whatever. Like, you dress like a rodeo clown. Here's Maxine Waters who she's the very poster child for why it is that we need to have this discussion about term limits. She's been a congresswoman for like 30 years. I don't get it. You know what I mean? How is it that the people on the left aren't laughing as hard as we are? Like, this is who you are, Democrats. Like, that lady, that's who you are. Liberal Sam came on and he's like, oh no, she doesn't represent me. Yes, she does. I know that you live in New York and she lives in California, but she represents your ilk. And when she gets on TV, she speaks for you. And if you don't like that, don't come bitching to me about it. You need to do what you need to do to get her out of there and get somebody new. Because she's embarrassing you. That's the same thing with the Cortez girl. Like, you think, like, oh, she's pretty and young. It's like, yeah, so what? So a bunch of people are going to want to have sex with her. That's only going to last a couple more years. She's going to get in her 30s, and then that's over. Then she's just going to be a normal jackass just like the rest of them, up there talking about like, oh, capitalism, capitalism wasn't there always, and it won't be there forever, and I don't know anything about Palestine. You know what I mean? Like, she's just going to be some crusty old lady talking nonsense. Is that what you want? Take out the fact that you want to fuck her, Sam, and just, put an old face on her, right? Put Donald Trump's face on her, right? Like, imagine Elise, what's her name? Alexandria Ocassio-Cortez. You imagine Donald Trump saying the exact same things that she said, right? Just get it in a Trump's voice and coming out of Trump's face. Now, what do you think of what she said? You see what I'm saying? Like, she talks crazy nonsense. And if you can't get behind that, like, if you don't understand that, like, well, then just imagine somebody that you hate saying the exact same thing. You know what I mean? Like, that's how you look at things objectively, Mr. Attorney. That's another thing, man. One thing that I have a cousin. I don't know which story to tell you first. Either how disappointed I am. Like Liberal Sam is a super smart guy, right? He went to one of the best law schools in the world. And furthermore, they paid him to go there. He's that smart, right? And when he uses horrible arguments, right, and talks about things without understanding, like in the interview when he says, well, because I'd made the point that the last 3 consecutive presidents all doubled the national debt, right? That's a fact. Like, there's no getting around that. Obama did it, Bush did it, Clinton did it, right? All 3 of them. And his response was like, well, I thought didn't Clinton leave with a surplus? It's like, yes, he left with a surplus, and he also doubled the national debt. Like, both can be true at the same time, because you're talking about 2 very different things, right? And so it's like, dude, you're supposed to be a lawyer. You know what I mean? And when you say things like, and you don't know what you're talking about, it's like there was no, like, if you don't know something, just say, look, I don't actually know. Or if I make if I spew out a stat where it's like, okay, the last 3 presidents all doubled the national debt. It's like, if you think I'm wrong, or if that sounds wrong to you, or you just don't know, it's like, okay, then just say that. Just say, oh, I don't know if that's true. Or can you please qualify that statement or anything? You know what I mean? But to cite something else, it's like, well, I thought he left with a surplus. He did. He did that too. You know? Or bringing up the fact that Bill Clinton was impeached. You tell that it's this. Go on to the Young Turks and just go into the comment section and say, well, how long did President Bill Clinton, how long did his impeachment process take? And you'll have 1,000 people that are saying, Bill, what are you talking about? He was a 2-term president. He wasn't impeached, because to those people, the word impeachment means to fire the president. And that's not what that word means. You know what I mean? Yes, President Clinton had a surplus, but a surplus of what would be the question, because the fact is he doubled the national debt, and then Bush did too, and then Obama did it too, and that's how we're at $20 trillion. So when I see Sam, you know, when I talk to Sam and he says like nonsense things, it's like, but you're supposed to be a good argument you know, you're supposed to be a good arguer, good argument maker, and you're not. Which means, like, so if you came from the best school that we have, one of them anyways, and they paid you to get that education, what does that say for the rest of the legal community? You know what I mean? It's awful. That's a nightmarish thought to me, because I have a relative, I'm not going to say who I've since blocked, or he blocked me or whatever, but I have a relative who graduated from Princeton. And you don't have to worry about who he is, because if you ever meet him, you will know that it's him, because he will remind you at the end of every sentence that he graduated from Princeton with a divinity degree, by the way. Someday let me do a whole segment on the truth of a master's or a PhD in divinity. It's kind of like, remember when you were in high school and you looked forward to PE, right? Because it was the one like bullshit, like we're just gonna go and we're gonna play games and, you know, throw balls at each other or whatever. It's like, that's what a divinity degree is. Like it's when you've given up on having an actual like cerebral pursuit. You just give up and you go study divinity. You know what I mean? But anyways, I have a cousin that has a PhD from Princeton in divinity. And oh boy, he will never let you forget it. You know what I mean? However, he has like he's one of the most vile, like just angry, you know what I mean? Like not like a priestly kind of guy where he's like full of love and joy of, you know, the joy of the Lord or whatever. Like he's just this angry guy. You know what I mean? And he's like his whole life has just been this long series of failures, and it's like it's hard to watch. You know, and this thing that he has is like, you know, it's like when you meet somebody or anybody who has a PhD and they insist that you refer to them as doctor. It's like, but you're not my doctor. I call my doctor. I don't just go around calling everybody who is a doctor. I don't do that. You know, like if I was standing next to my congressman, who's, by the way, his name is Duncan Hunter. That's from where I come from. I wouldn't sit there and be like, well, my esteemed colleague here. I'd just be like, Mr. Hunter. His last name is Hunter. I have manners, so I will refer to him as Mr. Hunter. But as far as my esteemed colleague goes, it's like, I don't know if you're of good esteem. I think you are, but to tell you the truth, I don't hang out with you all day. I have no idea what you're up to. Anyways, different thing. Why did I just start talking about my cousin? I think I've been trying to find a place to have that discussion. Like, I just don't like, that's another thing on my list of like things that I don't like in this world. It's douchebags. And I have a cousin who is like, no matter what you're talking about, he will figure out a way to let you know that he has a PhD from Princeton. Because Princeton used to be like, you know, a long time ago, it used to be really good. In fact, I mean, you know, Princeton is still one of the greatest medical schools, right? Like that whole, remember the show House, Dr. House, right? Played by Greg Laurie, who was a comedian, by the way. that took place. That whole story took place at Princeton Plainsboro, right, which is their teaching hospital, because Princeton has a very well recognized and esteemed, medical school. So it's like it would be one thing if he was like, yeah, I'm a heart surgeon now, I graduated from Princeton. That would be one thing. But it's like, yeah, I got a PhD from Princeton. In what? Divinity. It's like, oh, dude, you could have gotten the same thing online, bro. Cuz you literally could have got a PhD online and it probably would have held more weight. You know what I mean? Like, it's like you're bragging that you're now $200,000 in debt. That's about what it costs to go to Princeton in a PhD program. Do you know what I mean? Like, and again, that's another indicator of like a lack of sense of humor. You're taking yourself too seriously, man. You think Ben Carson walks around and be like, I prefer that you refer to me as doctor? You know what I mean? Like, don't be a douchebag. Even if you have earned it, don't be insisting on yourself. It's dumb. It's dumb, and it makes you look like a douchebag. And when you think that like you're, whatever little amount of fame that you have, like I was just watching. There's this new guy on YouTube called Slightly Offensive. And he's actually like a youth pastor, but you wouldn't know if I watched it. The only reason I know that is because there was this one little blurb where he said it out loud, but the rest of his videos, you wouldn't know that he's like, in full-time ministry. But he was just interviewing David Hogg. Again, it's like, how is David Hogg still a thing? You know what I mean? Like, who is it that's keeping that guy under any sort of spotlight? You know what I mean? Like, his story is over as far as I'm concerned. But anyways, he was interviewing him, and he's still just this angry little man. He's just so full of anger, and he's gonna, and he's all tweeting to the president, like, he tweeted the president's word. You remember the tweet on Sunday with the President Trump talking about Iran? Well, David Hogg retweeted that. He rewrote that same tweet, and every time it said Iran, he just put president or Trump or whatever. And it's just like, dude, you're just an angry little piece of shit, and you're taking yourself way too seriously. You are not that important to the world, David Hogg. I'm sorry. But you know who is truly more important to the world than you? David Hogg. The other David Hogg. The David Hogg that became famous because of you. Because all these people that were going after David Hogg, calling him a little angry, skinny piece of shit, all these people were going after him that they accidentally went onto this other innocent kid. His name is David Hogg. And they went after him. And now David Hogg, the good one, he turned it around. And he wrote everybody back. And he said, hey, dude, it's just a coincidence. I'm not that David Hogg. I'm another David Hogg. I'm just a kid in high school, man. Furthermore, I completely disagree with bad David Hogg. And guess what? Guess what that David Hogg was doing just days ago? He was rubbing elbows with Donald Trump Jr., right? Hanging out with the son of the president. And guess what? Now he is in a position to build relationships with people who actually go to work in the White House. And maybe this young man can say something that might change something. Who knows? But I'll tell you what won't change anything. Little angry David Hogg, you being all angry and letting everybody know that you're angry and that you hate everybody who doesn't think what you think. You know what that does to people? It galvanizes them. Right? Like, I may do or think things that you disagree with. You want to know how to make sure that I stay exactly in that line of thought? Insult me. Come at me like I need to defend myself. Right? Come at me with anger or, looking down on me or talking down to me, whatever. I'm just going to plant my feet even further because that's the human condition. That's how it works for everybody. So here's this little angry David Hogg. He's just so mad. And nobody wants to hear him anymore. Nobody but, perennially angry people, which kind of looks like there's a lot of them out there. Do you know what I mean, dude? Like, you've got to laugh. You have to laugh, or else you're going to burn out. You're going to get sick, and nobody's going to want to hear you because you're not funny. You're not interesting. You're just angry. And anybody can channel anger, but nobody can do it for very long. That's the show for today. If you want to support the show, go on to archavocate.com, become a Patreon supporter, just give me a big old wad of cash, hit subscribe on the podcast. Hit subscribe on the podcast, yo. Hit subscribe on which one is it on the YouTube? On the YouTube thingy. Hit that little subscribe button, hit share, hit the bell icon, all that stuff. That's the show for today. Tomorrow's Friday, so tomorrow we will be doing the Friday show. Yo, later.